Your boss might be watching you right now, even if you work from home. The moment your laptop connects to a company network, you have basically invited management to pull up a chair in your home office and spy on you. And in the United States, it is virtually 100% legal. There's even a nickname for it, bossware. They know when you slack, they know about every message you send, and they can read them. Their eyes are always on you. It leaves you facing an uncomfortable truth. You're not just working remotely anymore, you're working under observation. Chapter 1. The Green Dot Illusion. If you're one of the roughly 320 million people who use Microsoft Teams since 2024, you're more than familiar with how it forces you to perform or risk losing your job. If your status light isn't green, your employers start to get suspicious about how long you've been away from your desk. There are even articles available that give you tips and tricks on avoiding the dreaded idle status. It's all part of something called productivity theater. At this point, it's become a whole industry unto itself, all to the end of keeping that little green Teams light on. It's why if you go to any online retailer, you'll find so many options for mouse jigglers, a desk gadget that keeps your mouse eternally shaking to avoid it ever going idle. But Microsoft has invented the ultimate curtain call for productivity theater: the Unified Audit Log. Those 3 words might land you on the unemployment line. For management, one of the biggest advantages of Microsoft Teams and its unparalleled integration into the Microsoft 365 suite is the extremely powerful insights into your overall app interaction telemetry. That word is incredibly important to understand for all of this to make sense. IBM defines it as, quote, the automated collection and transmission of data and measurements from distributed or remote sources to a central system for monitoring, analysis, and resource optimization. And that is exactly what the Unified Audit Log makes possible. Your overall status and whether your mouse is moving is a worthless metric. Bosses will now be able to get a centralized data profile that tells them which apps on the 365 suite you've been interacting with and how often. They'll know if your camera is on in the meetings, what messages you're sending, and how you are spending company time. Thanks to Teams, they can now know at the click of a button, regardless of what color your little status light is. But that is not even half as sinister as the other thing that the tech allows your bosses to do: know exactly where you're working at any given time, like they've implanted a tracking chip right there in your laptop or phone. Chapter 2. The Office Spy. One of the latest features on Microsoft Teams will effectively allow your boss and all of your coworkers sharing the same work Wi-Fi network to stalk you. This isn't just a fear-mongering exaggeration, it's real. Microsoft has declined to comment in interviews, but the application will automatically detect your location whenever you connect to company Wi-Fi. This information will not only be easily accessible to server admins, but also your coworkers. One of the major so-called benefits of this new feature is that it allows you to detect and connect with your coworkers on projects. But anyone who wasn't born yesterday could tell you why that excuse doesn't stand up to scrutiny. If you want to co-work on a project with a fellow coworker, you can just send them a message. The only people who would benefit from knowing the exact location of all their workers at all times when connected to company Wi-Fi are your managers. They'll be able to see if you're a stack of potential profits or an unacceptable cost. Collecting reams of data on you is how they think they can tell the difference without actually getting involved. It's important to remember that the system admins at your workplace need to choose to turn this thing on. If they do, depending on your state, they legally only have to give you notice. But bear in mind, this isn't always so straightforward. They might hide this caveat in a larger user agreement, just expecting you to click "I agree" without reading. Or they might try to sell it to you through convenience, saying you'll never need to manually set your work location again. The only time you'll have power over this is before you sign away your right to privacy in the first place. Chapter 3. The Keystroke Trap. You might think, based on these 2 cases, that if your workplace doesn't use Microsoft Teams, you're in the clear. You'd be wrong. Technical employee surveillance is a thriving industry. With the advent of AI and the never-slowing-down software boom, new methods are being added to the spying toolkit every day. Take, for example, keystroke logging. This is somehow even more invasive and terrifying than the other options, and major tech companies like Meta are already doing it. As of late April 2026, Meta installed software on all employee devices that will track every key press as they type on their keyboards, every click they make, and even their mouse movements. all supposedly to train their AI models to perform these tasks autonomously. This dystopic technology is called the Model Capability Initiative, or MCI, and it is awful for employees for two different reasons. First, it is literally watching everything you click and type while at work and storing that information. If you use certain terminology that might be flagged inside the system, like pay raise or union in chats that you naively think are private, you might suddenly find the boss looking at you an awful lot closer. But even worse, if your company uses a program like this, it means that they're getting you to provide free on-the-job training to your own replacement. To you, it's the destruction of your livelihood and potentially even your industry. To management, they might reframe it as data-driven cost-cutting for the shareholders. Chapter 4. The AI Risk Score. It seems like nothing is sacred in the office, including your emails and browser history. If you're using a work computer, a work server, or even a work email address, all of these things are not your property. They belong to your employer, and that gives them sweeping rights to run through the content with a fine-toothed comb. Your company IT department knows every embarrassing question you've ever Googled on company time. Your boss can't just see the subject line of your email, its recipient, and the time it was sent, but also the body text and any attachments you had on it. None of this is off limits. None of it. Brian Kropp, Chief of Research for Gartner's HR practice, says anything that you write on any company messaging platform, your employer has access to, either through IT or HR. Anything you put on these platforms, your employer can look at. Demand for the technology has only improved the technology over time. Services like Sentry PC, Work Examiner, and iMonitorSoft all boast about one particular aspect of their functionality. If their system detects unacceptable employee behavior, and the parameters for this are of course selected by the employer, they'll secretly take a screenshot of the moment they view as a breach for the employer to keep as evidence. Imagine this, you're typing fast and a perfectly innocent word that you were typing now reads as something offensive because you clicked the wrong key. This isn't just a misunderstanding anymore. If your typo is on a secret internal list of unacceptable words or phrases, the screenshot has already been taken and sent directly to your boss to incriminate you. If your boss has already been looking for an excuse to get rid of you for whatever reason, a piece of AI software has just given them the silver bullet and then painted a target on your forehead. And that is still not nearly as bad as the ways your bosses can invade your privacy if they have bought a subscription to Veriato Cerebral Security. It's one of the more high-end employee stalking software services on the market. They have taken the screenshot violation even further with their time capsule feature. It'll capture a continuous video recording of your screen if the software has reasons to believe that you are violating the company code of conduct. Thanks to AI integration, not only does Veriato and the hundreds if not thousands of companies like it use their recordings to gather massive data packets, it also creates profiles on every employee. Their profile will be the product of patterns that the software identifies when it's spying on you. How many files do you download and upload on a daily basis? How much time do you spend interacting with each workplace application? How do you message? How many messages do you send? The purpose of all of this is behavior analytics, allowing them to identify anomalies in your behavior. In other words, if you start acting outside of the pattern that the software has predicted for you, it'll flag you as behaving strangely and let your boss know that something is wrong. Just because a single workday meant that you downloaded more files than usual or sent more emails, suddenly you're under a microscope. We all know just how often AI makes mistakes or suffers from hallucinations, but does your manager know that? If they're buying one of these services, chances are they trust it. And if it randomly declares you the company problem child, it's your word against the service your boss is paying for. They even use all the data they collect to compile a risk score on every employee. It assesses the likelihood that you'll be a security threat to the company. And this is all true. Veriato's own marketing materials brag that it runs in stealth mode by default, meaning that users would have no way of even knowing they're being watched. It's like an invisible person standing behind you right now, staring over your shoulder. Even if it doesn't detect wrongdoing, it'll just take a screen cap of your device every 30 seconds. Chapter 5. The Digital Panopticon. Paranoia of being observed breeds obedience. This whole idea was created by English philosopher Jeremy Bentham in 1786, almost 200 years before John Wilder Tukey first used the word software in the context of computing. He called it the Panopticon, a thought experiment around a perfect prison where prisoners believed they could be watched at all times. and so they always behaved themselves. Now we're seeing Bentham's dream realized across the whole workforce as intricate nets of software web together to create a global digital panopticon with every employee at every company trapped inside. And in an effort to stay on top of it in a competitive bossware market, companies are creating increasingly bizarre and invasive services to set themselves apart. Sneak is a piece of software that likes to present itself as a conscientious mental health aid for employees who miss the workplace atmosphere. But is your mental health really improved by your boss having the ability to conference call you at any time without a decline button? ProtoScore is an AI service that relentlessly tracks your activity and uses it to create a numerical productivity score for your boss. And if you have a position that has a pretty nuanced view of productivity, then there is an excellent chance this one could get you into trouble. And software designed to track your so-called active work can genuinely eat into your paycheck, as workers like finance executive Carol Kramer found out. Her $200 an hour salary resulted in a truly pathetic take-home pay because her employers used tracking software to only let her bill for the specific minutes that she was actively working. And this isn't an isolated incident. 8 of the 10 largest private U.S. employers track the productivity metrics of individual workers, many in real time, according to an examination by the New York Times. Some services like FlexiSpy, Spyware, Clever Control, and iKeyMonitor also provide call tapping functionality. Even more of these services offer webcam and mic surveillance, audio monitoring, and even mobile device access, so they can really get you anywhere. According to Surfshark, information on these services is even gathered into a centralized war room interface inside the software. The thing they're declaring war against is you ever having a sense of privacy again. But it's not just Microsoft. You are not safe on some of the most ubiquitous workplace apps on the market. If your workplace is using Slack and your company is buying the enterprise plan, it's easy for administrators to store and view your messages from everyone using the system underneath them. If the company you work at uses Google Workspace and subscribes to plans like Legacy G Suite Business, Google Workspace Business Plus, and Enterprise Standard, they can use the Vault. This ominously named feature allows them to archive and search specific content from the company's employees across Drive, Gmail, Groups, Chat, Voice, Classic Hangouts, and Meet. And the fact is, all of this is terrifying, and we have the stats to back it up. A study conducted by ExpressVPN found that 56% of employees feel stressed or anxious when they suspect monitoring is happening without their knowledge. Peter Holland, a professor of human resource management from Swinburne University, has gone on record saying that he thinks relentless productivity monitoring actually has the exact opposite of the intended effect. During an interview on the subject of bossware, he said, "The research indicates that the more you monitor and surveil people, the more likely it is that they are going to be less productive. People have spoken about being bullied. But despite this, market forces seem to be increasingly pressing management to take an aggressively data-driven approach to running their businesses. The result? They can no longer see the forest. In their desire to cut costs, they cut down all the trees." Chapter 6: The Office Revolution. The first line of defense will always be your own right to legally consent to this kind of spying. Check any work contracts you signed when you took the job for clauses that say you consent to workplace digital monitoring. It's a tactic employers rely on, using vague, carefully worded policies so you never fully realize how much of your privacy they're actually invading. But you can always check your computer by pressing Ctrl-Alt-Delete or Ctrl-Shift-Escape. You can open up your computer's task manager. This is essentially pop in the hood to see what software is currently running. If you spot any of the apps we mentioned or others you don't recognize, you may have just found proof that your boss is quietly looking over your shoulder right now. If you're using a Windows device, you can also use the MS-DOS command line, which means pressing Windows plus R and then typing CMD into the search box. From there, you can search Task List and find the same information on all the programs currently running. Another option is analyzing network traffic for sudden spikes during work hours. However, this one is a little more imprecise. There could be multiple explanations for these spikes, and you're not going to have any certainty from just the data alone. If you thought that, you'd be falling for the exact same trick all these expensive software services are pulling on your boss. In order to prevent yourself from getting caught out by any bossware, it's also important to practice data hygiene. This means you should keep any work friends group chats off the official servers and on separate devices. A safe mantra to internalize is, never say or do anything on a work device or on a work network that you wouldn't be fine with your boss immediately being able to see. Sometimes the services your boss uses won't be as stealthy as some of the premium packages. Not everyone can afford to predict all their employees' risk factors after all. If your browser comes with a message that says "managed by your organization," then don't make any literally not safe for work searches. And treat it with healthy suspicion if your boss asks you to connect to a specific VPN while working, because it might be one that allows traffic inspection from the administrators. And of course, if you don't mind being a little more confrontational, you can always buy and download some reputable anti-spyware software. And even if your boss confronts you over it, at least you'll know that you still have the moral high ground. The workplace isn't the only place where tensions are rising. Companies might be watching employees more closely than ever. But the tech giants building those systems are starting to turn on each other too. And the biggest fracture might be happening inside the AI industry itself. Find out the real story in massive Microsoft divorce that will bankrupt OpenAI and ChatGPT forever. Or watch this instead.